In order to get a six-pack, all it takes in theory is to reasonably manage the calories in meals. In practice, however, such approach is very limited. This time in my reasoning, I shall quote Dorian Yates. A six-time winner of the legendary Mr. Olympia, not only did he perform regular cardio sessions regardless of the season, but he also devoted a lot of time to them. In certain cases, he would even choose to perform longer cardio rather than increase the volume in strength training. He treated cardio as an addition to weight training, whereas it was an important and integral element of a whole. Firstly, that was his way of preventative care in terms of overall health. Even amateur bodybuilders, which means most of us, take their body mass in the areas on the BMI scale that are considered being overweight. But due to the fact that we don't have excess adipose tissue at the same time, it seems to us that everything is okay, because despite our weight, we remain in a good shape. Bad news. The belief that BMI doesn't apply to people who do not strength train is only half-truth, because it is a fact that the body composition is also an important variable when evaluating the risk of developing circulatory illnesses. It's also a fact that the more muscle mass we have relative to the adipose mass, the more beneficial it is for us. However, if we don't exercise the heart muscle, then even despite the relatively bigger muscle mass than fat, the heart muscle still needs to pump the blood around a heavier body. What makes it easier for it is that even strength exercises increase the muscle performance and endurance in a way. Let's take into account that the more we weigh, the more calories we burn during everyday activities, even walking. By skipping cardio, you may end up in a situation where your performance will be lower than if you didn't exercise at all. This is a common situation, especially among those amateurs whose body fat percentage is around 20% and more. And despite their good muscle mass, they don't have visible abdominal muscles, which in case of professional bodybuilders whose weight indicates high-level obesity, additionally bombarded with anabolics, can turn athletic-looking people into handicaps. Dorian was aware of that. That's why he exercised his heart muscle as well as lung performance so that they could keep up with his muscle mass. Secondly, improved resting metabolism. In other words, it's about the amount of energy that we burn every day without doing any additional activity. By improving this parameter, we help our body with more effective use and distribution of nutrients, including proteins. And the better it is at utilizing the provided amino acids, the more efficient the reconstruction of damaged fibers will be. Thirdly, muscle endurance and readiness for the heavier periods of training mesocycle. Thanks to cardio, Dorian was able to go through the heavy, body-exhausting periods before competitions. The better your body is at managing the oxygen resources, the more activity you can take and set yourself more daring goals and go through more demanding training plans. It's often poor performance that prevents amateurs from getting into the next level. Fourth, performance exercise burn calories. This one is obvious, although very often omitted in debates. Regardless of the season, whether you're bulking, cutting, or maintaining the weight, regular cardio allows you to eat more. Especially at the final stages of reduction, it is incredibly important. With every serious reduction, there finally comes a moment when you will go hungry. Luckily, not every form of activity increases appetite, which in this kind of situation may be a lifesaver. Dorian knew this correlation, and in particular during the latest stages of cutting, he would add a lot of performance training. But what was the favorite form of the six-time Mr. Olympia, considered by some to be the best in history? Let me quote the champion himself and his statement on the matter. "My favorite form of cardio is power walking. I have already tried all kinds of stationary bikes and treadmills, although the prospect of pedaling and running without getting anywhere simply became awfully boring to me, which is why power walking became my thing for the off-season. I would get back to the exercise bike and treadmill when the weather, I live in England, started sabotaging any outdoor activities." Power walking is moving at the speed of 5 kilometers an hour and above. It's a faster pace while not being any problem to most of us. Most likely, even without exercises, you'll be able to do more than that. Besides the advantages listed by Dorian Yates, I would also add a few more. First, walking gets your body ready for actual running. That's because walking is easy on joints and tendons. At the same time, it will strengthen the lumbar, core, and back. By gradually increasing the pace of walking, we slowly strengthen all the above described areas. You will especially appreciate walking if your weight is in higher BMI values and you have avoided cardio so far. That's because you may have problems at the beginning of your running journey. In general, your whole body may not be ready for that yet. And if your approach to training is all or nothing, you have to lift huge weights at the gym and you won't give up even when really tired. Then if you suddenly jump on the nearest path to run, there's a huge chance that you will get injured. I'm sure you don't have a good running technique. Inadequate footwear, you may damage not only the knee joints but also tendons, like the Achilles tendon or the biceps. These types of injuries are not only hard to heal, but they may throw you off the rhythm in heavy squats or deadlifts. With quick marching, you will slowly get your body ready for bigger loads, while not giving up on what you love the most in the meantime. A lot of beginner runners also complain about pain in the lumbar spine. Despite their good shape on the surface, plenty of gym goers who suddenly start running will quickly experience disproportions in the strength of certain muscles. Plenty of us have weaker abdominal muscles than the erector spinae muscles. We also often have a weak abdominal oblique muscle, which results in excess pelvic anteversion, which in turn shortens the soleus muscles, which then impairs the functioning of gluteal muscles. Because of that, movement compensations lead to a situation where significant overload is taken by the lumbar spine. So when including walks, it's a good idea to also work a little at the gym on the gluteal muscles, biceps, etc., calves, and core muscles. Another hint is to include ballistic exercises like jumps, for example. Secondly, marching doesn't increase appetite. Running, cycling, and especially swimming or martial arts. These are wonderful activities, very effective at burning calories and developing the body. At the same time, martial arts are very engaging and everyone, and even minimum ADHD, will have a great time there. Still, their downside is that you will quickly become very hungry after such session, which isn't a very desirable situation when you're on a reduction, for example. Walking is much better in this regard. You will burn calories, but at the same time without feeling the urge to devour half of the fridge. Third, it effectively burns adipose tissue. In every type of activity, the source of energy are carbohydrates and fats. On the other hand, low-intensity aerobic activity utilizes the fat resources to a greater degree than the carbohydrate resources. Fourth, it burns quite a lot of calories. As a counter-argument to the above statement, one could add that higher intensity, despite using carbohydrates to a large degree, burns more calories. And overall it is true, but marching still burns more than many would suspect. To better picture the scale, I present an interesting table with an estimated caloric expenditure for marching. It's a good example because plenty of you weigh more or less within the range. As we can see, a person of such weight in an hour of brisk marching will burn more than 300 kilocalories. And after all, walking outside also entails walking on different surfaces and on differently shaped terrains. All it takes is marching uphill to increase this figure nearly to 500 calories, which makes marching nearly equal to running, during which a person of the same mass would burn a little above 600. Be honest, how many of you would be able to keep running for an hour? Those without fitness preparation are rarely able to run for longer than 15 minutes, maybe up to half an hour. A quick march, on the other hand, can last for entire hours. Fifth, better mood. Walking means exposure to nature and vitamin D, and even if you live in a big city, during a walk you will still run into some green, some dog owners, and unpicked poop, which is also nature after all. That way, you will successfully raise the level of one of the neurotransmitters responsible for good mood, which is serotonin, which means that walking also increases your overall energy level. And if you pick a good route, you will also recharge your dopamine receptors a little. Sixth, better recovery than in case of running. Running is a demanding activity for our muscles, after which usually comes soreness and fatigue. That's why, especially at the beginning, we shouldn't run every day. You, as mainly a bodybuilder or someone who exercises for the physique and fitness, will have it even harder here, because running isn't your main goal in itself, after all. Additionally, it's not like you go easy on the weight when training your legs or extensors. So, how many days do you have left that you could devote to practice running? Walking, on the other hand, even the everyday type and the long type, shouldn't interfere with your daily recovery, which also means with executing the main objectives of your training plan.